Imaš moskitovi to?
Strašně napiš.
Last time we were here,
Yeah.
Saved by the chemical.
No.
Next year, the mosquitoes will come back and just look at your spray and go. They'll already be
immune to everything.
Pa nema puno, pa nema.
Možeš preko. Reci mi sve, znači kako se čuje, harmoniji, da li se čuje ovdje?
Ona neće čuti, neće vam svirati ako se tako dalo. Dođi onda tamo kod Gornje Taja svirati.
Čuću ako je tamo.
Da, neće.
These are like loud, so I'm trying to go away from them. I didn't know I should have taken the smaller ones.
Why are you so far? Sit here.
Preglasne kada.
Sit here. Behind me.
Preglasne kada.
To će biti rado. To će biti rado.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunya Vadi Paschatya Desha
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Yesterday evening, we did an experiment in Zagreb. Shall we try it again? Here?
Yes.
course, now we know what will happen. Everybody's gonna get out their phones and look for this song on their phones, which is okay, you can do. Gai Gaurav Madhuswari. And for this, Shamesh, can you do a duto? Gai Gaurav.
3/4.
Experiment, but not
It's a
really.
waltzer.
Yeah, okay.
It's a waltz.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
The sneeze that went around.
Madhuswara. What is the
Gai
guy? Guru Madhuswara. Treba jače. Da. Ali... Mahanić treba bliže samo staviti. Sad ćemo... Bliže? Bliže, da.
Tako.
Hvala.
Okay. Between my sneezing, I have actually I think I have allergy against hay.
Oh.
But anyway,
Oh, that's
okay.
unfortunate.
We'll see how we manage.
This is straw, this is not hay.
Then it's okay.
It's all synthetic, so
It's synthetic straw. It just looks like straw.
go back placebo.
Tako. Kao film.
Okay, we start out without any percussion. And we take our time. So the song, this is from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And it's a nice little song with 3 lines, 3.5, in which he's describing how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is singing in a sweet voice, Madhur Sware. And what is he singing? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he's urging everyone else to sing. And in his urging, he's making some encouraging words. How are we with English speaking? Do we need some translation? Divya Prabham, do we need? We're okay, everyone.
Jesi ti koristio za komarce?
Da sam ga dao dalje.
O, jel da? Ko će to plati? Šta je to ispod? Bravo. Natural stuff. Natural stuff.
Okay, so there's a lot of, I think it would be called syncopation.
Natural stuff.
A lot of, syncopation in this, so it's a little tricky. I'm singing it the Achyutananda style. Achyutananda recorded many years ago. Gaur Madhur Sware Hare Gaya Gora Madhusare Gaya Gora Madhusare Gaya Gora Madhusare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Volume Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Gaya Gora Madhusare Gaya Gora Madhusare. Okay, you're a little shy, but that's understandable. Okay, then it goes into the first verse. Grihe Tako Bone Tako Shada Hari Bole Dako. Now this word dako, many of you will know from a certain song which is a favorite amongst the devotees. It's a song which begins Sharira Avitya Jana Jodendriya Tenka. You know the song. Jive Pele Shaya Shakore. So at the end of that song, how does it go? Krishna Varadvayamoy Korivare Jiva Joy Jiva Tom Shah Prasad Annadilovai. Then She Annamrita Pao Radha Krishna Guna Gao means sing the glories of Radha Krishna. And then what's the last line? Preme Dako. It has a little echo on it. Dako. Dako. Not Darko. Dako. Dako means call out. Preme. Dako. How to call out? Preme. In love. In devotion. What should we call out? Chaitanya Nita. Or, in this case, he's saying, Sada Hari Bole Dako. Call out always Sada, not Sada, which is now. Right? Sada, always call out the name Hari. When should we do this, or in what circumstance? Grihe Tako, Vone Tako. Whether you live in the household or you are a renunciant, you're living in the forest. Or if you're a householder living in the forest. Either way, all options. And then, Shuke, Duke, Bulo, Nako, Naiko. Varane Harinam Korore. Suke means happiness, how we say in Privatsky.
Sreća.
Sreća. And in happiness, how do you say?
Nesreća.
In?
Nesreća. Unhappiness, nesreća.
No. In happiness.
U sreći.
U sreće. And dukkha, duke. Mesrecha.
Nesreća.
Nesrecha. Oh, it's not happy.
Yes.
Okay. So, u nesrecha would be in non-happiness.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's either happiness or non-happiness, not happiness. How are you today? Not happy. Suke duke bhulo na. So the word bhul means forgetting. And bhulo na, don't forget.
So same, like Croatia. No. But they they finish with na.
Yeah. We start and they stop
Yeah.
with na. Yeah, because they're emphasizing na. Bulo na. Don't forget. Okay, suke duke bulo nako. Varane harinam koro re. Varane in your speech, in your mouth. Harinam koro. Do harinam. It's in the form of, it's called the imperative form. It means like you're telling a child, sit down and eat prasada. Right? Yeah, so anyway, here we go. Let's try the second, this first full verse. A little bit lower. Grihe tako, vane tako, sadahati bole dako. Grihe tako, vane tako, Suke buke bulo nako varane harinam korore. Suke duke bulo nako harinam korore. Gai goro marusare, Gai goro marusare. And everyone together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware. Okay, good. So far, so good. Still a little bit shy, but it's understandable. We don't know this song. Okay, Maya jale baddha hoye, achamiche kaj loye. Maya, you've ever heard of Maya? No.
She's all around.
Common name in Croatia.
Huh?
Common name in Croatia. The
I know it's
Maya
a name.
is a common name in Croatia.
Yeah, it's a common name. Yeah. But otherwise, there's no Maya in Croatia, right?
Few of them.
No, I mean there's no Maya. In the sense.
No.
There's no Maya.
All Shuddha Sattva.
Huh?
All Shuddha Sattva.
All Shuddha Sattva, yes. And Jale, what means Jal? Jale.
Some kind of water.
Here we have another word that you know, but you didn't know that you know. And it's from the same song, from the Dako, and it's from the first line. Sharira avidya
Ja.
jal. So what means jal?
Water.
Water.
Wrong.
Network?
Yes, exactly. You got it. Now we ring a bell. There's and there's ringing a bell.
Don't
Get a prize. Ding. Maya Jale. So in the network of Maya, Buddha, bound. Hoye, being bound. The network of Maya. Acha miche, kaj loye. Kaj means work in Bengali, and miche means useless. Means waste of time. Acho, being, I think, being a waste of time. You're wasting your time working hard in this network of Maya, bound in this network of Maya. So that's your condition. That's our problem. Now comes the solution. Akono Chaitanya Peye Radha Madhav Nambolo Re. Akon Chaitanya Peye, taking Peye with our consciousness. Akon, once, just once. Bolo, what does bolo mean?
Sing.
Yeah, yes. Both end. Call out. Harinam bolo. We say Hari bol all the time, right? This bol is also a command, actually. So whenever you meet someone, a devotee, and you say Hari bol, then the proper response would be Hare Krishna. You just told me to chant the name of Hari, so I'm chanting the name of Hari. Okay, so Radha Madhav Nam Bolore. So he's specifying, chant the names of Radha and Madhava. Why would Bhaktivinoda Thakur specify Radha Madhava? And anyone have an idea? The same reason that he composed this little song that we sing typically before starting a lecture, Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava were deities of the family of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And those deities are still available to be seen, to have darshan in Odisha. And there were times when the late Fakir Mohan Prabhu would bring those deities to the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, and they would put these deities, metal deities, sort of about the size of Radha Madhava, not quite so big as small Radha Madhava in Maya. They would bring and they would put on the altar of Radha Shamasan. It was quite interesting, quite something to see deities of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Okay. Maya chale batha hoje acho miche kachloye Maya chale batha hoje acho miche kachloye Ekona Chaitanya Peye Radha Madhav Nam Bolore Ekona Chaitanya Peye Radha Madhav Nam Bolore Gai Gora Madhur Swade Gai Gora Madhur Swade Gai Gora Madhur Madhuswari. Bolun. Gai Gaura Madhuswari. Everyone together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gai Gaura Madhuswari, Gai Gaura Madhuswari. And the last stanza, Jivan hoilo shesh nabajile rishikesh, bhakti vinodopadesh akbar nam roshe matore. So Jivana, life, hoilo shesh, is coming to an end. Or when it comes to an end. Wow. That was impressive. This boy just jumped out and did a flip at the same time. So, your life is coming to an end. Nabaji le Rishikesh, if you have not worshipped Rishikesh, who is Madhava, who is Hari, if you haven't worshipped, then that's a problem. So, Bhakti Vinod, so he's giving his signature at the end. Bhakti Vinod's advice, Upadesha, Akbar Nam Rase Matore. This re at the end of these lines is a kind of exclamation, like, yeah. It's like an exclamation. Re. Akbar, one time. Nam Rase Mata. Just experience the rasa of the name. That's all Bhaktivinoda is saying, please. But he's quoting Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Sorry, he's quoting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jivana hoi lo she nabajile rishikesh. Jivana hoi lo she nabajile rishikesh. Bhakti vinod opadeshet bar nam rase matare. Bhakti vinod opadeshet bar nam rase matare. Gai Gaura Madhuswari. Gai Gaura Madhuswari. Gai Gaura Madhuswari. Gai Gaura Madhuswari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Gai Gaura Madhuswari. Gai Gaura Madhuswari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote more than 200 songs in Bengali, and specifically for the purpose of teaching the philosophy, the theology of Krishna Bhakti, and specifically in his Nam Hatto program. Hatto means what? Hatto.
Marketplace.
Market, yeah, market. So after the British sort of became the prevailing political power in India, in particular in Bengal, it was political power, but this grew out of their efforts to make money. Their purpose was coming to India was to make money, to profit. And they were very successful at that, and with the help of soldiers. Essentially, yeah, that's another story. But there was a kind of prominence of kind of markets of all sorts and the center of this was Calcutta, because Calcutta became the sort of center of the British Empire outside of London. So it was a real sort of a focal point. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was growing up in that area of Calcutta as all of this was happening. And so he saw in this an impetus for what he appreciated had been initially established by Srila Nityananda Prabhu, Nityananda Ram, the Nam Hatta. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur really kind of, we would say, he ran with this idea. It is said, I don't know how this was documented, but they say that in a very short time, like 2-year period, Bhaktivinoda Thakur established no less than 500 Namhatta groups. He would travel around Bengal to the villages, and he would get people coming together and chanting. And each of these programs was establishing a Namhatta. And he wanted to teach. He wanted that people get the right idea what they're doing when they're chanting Hare Krishna. So therefore, he wrote all these songs. And they're very didactic songs. They're teaching how to understand what is going on, what is the purpose. So this is one of these songs. Okay, another thing that we did yesterday evening, which I thought we could do again this evening, is read a little something from this little book, Prabhupada Nectar. It's nice to hear about Srila Prabhupada, who got us all where we are in this Krishna consciousness movement. These are collected nectar. I heard that this has been translated into Prevatsky, yeah? So you may be familiar. But it's nice to be reminded. So this is a little section called Prabhupada Said. We've been reminded that Prabhupada would sometimes say, everyone is saying Prabhupada said. Everyone is quoting him this way and then that way. Anyway, here is what he said, responding to some questions. question. How many other people are there on the planet who have made as much spiritual progress as you have? Someone's asking this of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. Some, but not many. But there are a few. There are no statistics in my possession. What is the use of taking statistics of how many are there? Why don't you become one of them? Prabhupada would often do this. He would turn a question around and challenge the questioner to this effect, confronting them. Why don't you accept Krishna consciousness? Why don't you become advanced? Why don't you chant Hare Krishna? This was very often his way when he would be interviewed by journalists. His mood was very often not like he's speaking to the journalist to report something in their journal, newspaper, whatever, but I'm talking to you now, and I'm saying, why don't you surrender to Krishna? That was very often that was typically his mood, and people were not ready for that, being confronted in that way. So he's saying here, why don't you become one of them? Why are you wasting your time in that way? These are not very intellectual questions. You just try to become enlightened. What is the use of knowing who is enlightened or not? You try to be enlightened. That's all. When you are, and now he gives example, when you are going somewhere, purchasing the plane ticket, do you ask, how many tickets have you sold? What is the use? You just purchase your ticket and get on the airplane and go. Don't waste your valuable time in that way. If you are serious, just purchase your ticket and get on the airplane. That's all. All right, chant Hare Krishna. Okay, now, but there's more questions. Next question. If we are on the street collecting money, and we are thinking, oh, I am a very good collector. I am collecting so nicely. Is that all right? Srila Prabhupada. Yes. Yes. You are a very good collector for Krishna. Question. But if we... Srila Prabhupada cuts him off. Prabhupada, yes, you should be proud. You should feel proud. I am working for Krishna very nicely. We don't reject anything, even this pride. Yes, I am greater servant of Krishna. Yes, I am proud. That kind of pride is nice. Yes. And I think we saw that a lot in Srila Prabhupada. He was, many times Prabhupada would boast. You know the word boast?
Yeah.
What's the word?
Croatian.
Croatian.
He would, in a way, you could say egoistic,
Brag?
but this is...
Brag.
Yeah.
Brag. Yeah,
Yeah.
bragging, boasting.
But this is because...
What's the word in Privatsky?
We are not that proud.
You don't
We are
boast.
not that proud.
You never brag. Oh, that's right, because there's no Maya. In Croatian.
Quality.
Quality. Okay. Yeah. But you never do that here in Croatia. Huh?
Just like there's no Maya.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, it's really... It's hard, but it's really hard to preach in Croatia because there's no Maya to be criticizing and arguing and against. Anyway, yeah, Prabhupada would often brag and boast, especially in India. We have so many centers all over the world. We are just printing so many books. We are collecting so much money. He would say like that. We are collecting $100,000 a day. So here he's saying more generally, if you feel some pride in your service, that's okay, because it's for Krishna. Okay, the next question, he starts out, this might be a stupid question, but... And Prabhupada cuts off, well, we are all stupids. So question must be stupid, because we are all stupids. He says, I have heard in the street, we have to hear everything from Krishna, and then it is perfect. Question, well, sometimes I feel what they call chakras. I feel clear light over here, and I feel something swirling over here that they call the house of the upper lotus. Is this my imagination, or are these things real? Srila Prabhupada, yes, it is imagination. If you just open your skull, you will find no lotus there. If you open your skull. Oy. It is your imagination. That's all. These imaginations are prescribed for persons who are too much absorbed in the bodily concept of life. Here is a lotus, here is a nonsense, here is an ocean of bliss. You have to find out, he's quoting. It is just to make him concentrate, just like a naughty boy, like a bad boy. To make him stop doing nonsense. Please sit down here, stop all this. In quotes. Our proposition, now he's giving the Siddhanta. I am not this body. Even if there is lotus, I don't care for it. Do you follow? I am not this body. Even if there is lotus. What I have to do with this lotus? My first proposition is, I am not this body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Yeah. Now what shall we do? Any suggestions? I don't have a plan. The fact is, the truth be told, we can discuss. I have Bhagavad Gita here in verses form. Or if you have some specific topic you want to talk about.
I just wrote something. I announced it on our portal, but I didn't ask you.
Oh, that's good.
That's planned.
That's planning. Yeah, I like
I was
that.
just automatically, I was just thinking you will speak something about the role of self-sufficient farms in the Srila Prabhupada's vision
Oh, okay,
of
okay.
Sankirtan movement.
Oh, I see. All right.
Or something a little bit just.
Yeah.
Since we are here.
Since we're here in the fake straw.
The real mosquitoes.
Yeah, so. Srila Prabhupada wanted initially to start his mission in India. Many of you will know the story how he opened a kind of center in this town, Jhansi, and then after some, months, he had to close. I mentioned this because if we go back to that time, that would have been the 1950s. So India had become politically so-called independent in 1947. What was it? August 15th, midnight, 1947. And then about 2 years later, they wrote their constitution. And by the time the constitution was written, Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who was more famous as Mahatma Gandhi, was gone. Gandhi, and I mention Gandhi because Srila Prabhupada in his youth had been very inspired by Gandhi in his political movement, but I think we could also say in his whole approach, whereby he wanted to see a reform of India to kind of get back to the village. His idea was that the center of cultural and economic life really has to be the village to be sustainable. I don't know if Gandhi ever used the word sustainable. Sustainability is a kind of buzzword from more recent times. And Gandhi had started some experimental ashramas. He made 2 ashramas in South Africa before he came to, this was before he started his big efforts in India, and that's a whole history, but he started these rural ashramas in South Africa, 2, and then he came to India and he started 2 more eventually in Gujarat, northwest India. And he invested a lot of hope, a lot of energy. He's paid a lot of attention to the details of running those places. And my theory is that Srila Prabhupada was inspired by what he was doing in that respect, and very well may have wanted to expand that idea in India himself. As we know, he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur in 1922. That's 100 years ago, by the way. And he, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, at that time just kind of suggested to him that he preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English. That idea Prabhupada took to heart, and of course he made it his mission. After it was confirmed in 1936, and then in 1965 he actually came to the West. And I think he carried with him all this time, this wanting to establish a complete society of Krishna consciousness. I think when he said, now we're in New York, we're establishing the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he saw at that time in his, we hear that he met this tram conductor and described to him, only time separates us from temples, books, farms. He described his whole movement. So he had a vision, and that vision included communities which were country-based, or village country-based, in which everyone could live. He emphasized, well, Prabhupada emphasized happiness, didn't he? A lot of times he said, you want to be happy, you want to be happy, then take up this Krishna consciousness. And integral to that taking up Krishna consciousness was having an economic base, which would be not artificial. And again, back to India, what Prabhupada saw happening when Gandhi left was that the central government of India was taken over by persons whose interest or whose concept was complete opposite of what Gandhi had in mind. Let's industrialize. The factories will become our temples, and like that they were saying, we need industry, we need get tractors. And then in the early 1960s, that's also significant, in the early 1960s, they started what was called the, in quotes, Green Revolution. Divya Prabandha, you know about the Green Revolution. So this was in North India, in areas mainly Punjab and Haryana, I think, where they would use they would use a lot of fertilizer and a lot of insecticides, and they would use genetically modified crops, seeds, and they would grow so much more. I don't remember any of the percentages, but initially there was amazing results. I mean, hugely increased percentage of crops were grown in the beginning, and then and then it started going back down again. And why it was going down, one reason was the groundwater was going down because they were using too much water. And because the insects, the insects are very clever guides. They see, oh, now they're bringing these insecticides. Interesting. Okay, let's just breed ourselves so that we're not affected by that. They do this. So they have to keep producing new insecticides, stronger, which has unknown side effects and so on. So Prabhupada was seeing all of that, and the tractors were introduced in the early 20th century. They started replacing cows and bulls, oxen. And Prabhupada saw all this and said, this cannot be good, it cannot be sustainable, it can't last. And so I think when Jhansi kind of collapsed, he decided, okay, we go to America and we start fresh. We start with people who have no preconceptions. We just give them the simple idea, and we give them the full package. And I also was imagining how when Srila Prabhupada first came to New York, very soon after that, he took a bus. In fact, pretty much the same day, I guess. He was escorted by bus, Greyhound bus, to Butler, Pennsylvania, home of the Jeep. Hare Krishna. It's town where they were producing the Jeep in America. But when you drive, when you go by car from New York into Pennsylvania, you will be struck by the sharp contrast. New York is, you've seen the photos, if you haven't been there, it's all these skyscrapers and so on. Then you cross the bridge, the Hudson Bridge, whatever it's called, into New Jersey. There's Jersey City. It's also, urban sprawl. But then you get through New Jersey and you come into Pennsylvania, and now it's green, and it's rolling hills, farmland. It's like here. It's very nice. And I can just imagine Prabhupada seeing all this and thinking, yes, this is where we can make a fresh start. And so when the opportunity came to acquire a place in New Vrindavan, Prabhupada said, yes, take it, go. And then they got the first cow. What was her name? First cow they had. Was it Surabi? Yeah. And, off they went. This was the beginning. But your question is about relation to Sankirtan. Oops. Well, one way to consider this is you're on the street.
Ручник.
You're on the street and you're meeting people in some town, maybe in Daruvar, maybe in Zagreb. And you meet someone who's kind of open and you say, here, excuse me, I have this book, it's about yoga. And you might want to say it's about bhakti yoga, and you may, seeing how open they are. You can explain so many things, and then they show some interest, and then the question starts to come. So, how do you people live? What do you people do? Welcome. They're throwing straw. Fake straw, yeah. Yeah, it's no big disaster happening here.
Better it will soak, otherwise it will spread.
Otherwise, who knows what will happen. So my point is that at some point we want to show people not only the theory, but the practice. And the practice, we want to show a complete package. One thing that many people are kind of surprised, actually, that, oh, you have families. We thought you were all monks. No, we have families, we have kids. Really? Okay. So family and kids, that means, so you're working. Yes, we're working. Oh, you're working in a factory just like me. Yeah. Okay, so what's the advantage of your Hare Krishna? I'm working in a factory, you're working in a factory. So we want to, I think this is Srila Prabhupada's idea, we want to, in terms of outreach, we want to show we want to be able to show this is a model for how everyone could live. We're showing a model for how everyone could live. Now, there have been, especially in the last couple of hundred years, in the 19th century in America, there were so many attempts to make alternative communities, various sorts of utopian communities. And invariably they would start out with much enthusiasm, and after some time they would collapse. And why would they collapse? Because they had no philosophy. They had no understanding of the sort of basic principles by which a community could work together. And so they pretty much all collapse. There are communities that manage themselves, and from them there could well be things that we can learn. I think we should not be so... Prabhupada spoke of pride here in a positive sense. I think there's another kind of pride we have to be careful of, and that is the pride that we're devotees, so we know all about, for example, sustainable country living. We know ourselves how to do it. Maybe, but then again, maybe we can learn some things from our neighbors. In any case, so we're concerned in two directions. One is for ourselves to live peacefully and happily, and the other is to show example for others how they can live peacefully and happily without depending on all the things which I think in the last couple of years everyone has been wondering, gosh, how much longer can we depend on this whole system? Confirmed by Rama. Da, yeah.
He wants to give class.
He wants to give class. Please, you're welcome. Is that okay? Yeah, so we have an ISKCON GBC ministry for cow protection and agriculture. Dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun. And the basic mission of this ministry is to provide resources in the form of encouragement, first of all, and knowledge, and possibly sharing or networking, making available practical resources, especially persons, to help to develop projects. So the idea is not that ISKCON itself is going to have so many farms all over the world. Maybe there will be. Srila Prabhupada did have that idea also, that we have centers in the cities where the preaching is going on, temples, preaching centers, and restaurants. And the restaurants would be supplied by by the farms. And then the people would come and they would get the products from the farms, and they would find out this is all coming from a Hare Krishna farm. And they might then want to find out more about the practical side of what we do. So that ideal is also there. But in the ministry, the idea is that also, okay, how many farms can ISKCON itself manage? ISKCON is, relatively speaking, extremely tiny. And so can we rather provide resources that will give guidance so that those who appreciate something about Krishna consciousness can make something of it themselves with their own facilities. Everyone's fighting mosquitoes right now. These poor living entities. And it's all, the mosquitoes biting you, they're all the females, by the way. They just want to feed their eggs. So they're just trying to be good mothers. So little sympathy for the mosquitoes. Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna, maybe we end with that, or 5 more minutes Kirtan with some bass rocking.
Mridanga play. Wow, John. Touch. Nice.
Okay, I think we need Sri Prahlad's reggae style here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, get Shami, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, follow, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Daruvar Yatra ki jai, Gaur Premanande. So, my thanks to Divya Prabandha and Krishna Premi for hosting us today, and Ramai too. Haribo! And to all of you for coming together. Will some of you be coming to Koprivnica tomorrow? Hopefully. Good. And what else?
There's food.
There's food.
Prasadam will be served just in the courtyard.
In the courtyard. Okay. Some more fighting off of the mosquitoes. All right. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hari Hari.
He's always Krishna Kshetra Maharaj ki
Jai! Naru?
Malo friško.